Okay, here is just a quick video demonstration of what I went over in the article. So, of course, there are so many ways of generating random sounds in live. In this case, we will be using an effects rack mapped to each row on Novation's Launchpad to hopefully give us many different versions of an a cappella. So you can see the a cappella is here on the vocal sample track. What we need to do first is create another audio track to capture the wet signal from the a cappella, which we can hopefully edit the good bits out of later on. So just make sure vocal sample is selected from the audio from menu, monitor is set to in, and let's record and enable the track. Next up, let's have a look at the effects rack which I've placed on the a cappella. You can see it's a combination of many different types of effects. I've got a beat repeat on there, some third-party beat mashing plugins, a high-pass filter, some grain delay, some simple delay. Perfect effects really for manipulating an a cappella, and will hopefully give us some interesting results. So without further ado, let's bring up our Launchpad and go into user 2 mode. Now, to give us an indication of which effects are on and off at any one time, what I've done is I've mapped the on-off switches of each of the devices to the leftmost pads of each of the rows. And the rest of the pads in each row will be mapped to the 8 macros on the effects rack. So now let's get to work on mapping the rack. So select the first parameter, which in this case is the beat repeat, and tap the second button in the row followed by the last button. Now you can see the mapping info pop up, which indicates the macro has been mapped evenly across all the pads in the row, well, the second to the 8 pads in this case. So let me just map the rest of the parameters in the same fashion, and once that's done, now we can control all the effects rack with the 64 pads and the Launchpad. So next up, I just want to edit some of the min and max settings for some of the macros. So for example, the beat repeats grid function, as I've only 7 different pads to play with in the beat repeat row, I'm going to bring the minimum setting to about a 30-second note and the max to a quarter note. And I will also change the pitch on the grain delay because minus 36 is a bit much, so I'm going to bring that to 0 roughly. And let's adjust the max setting down to about 7. That should be fine. Okay, we're almost ready to start. Before we do, let's just go back to the Launchpad, and we're going to turn all the devices off so we can start with the dry signal. And then once we've done that, we're pretty much ready to go. So let's launch the track. Okay, so let's go into user 2 mode and let's turn on a couple of the beat mashing effects. And you can hear already that we're getting some beat mashing type sounds. Let's just adjust the grid parameter from the beat repeat, see what happens. And the great thing about this is you can actually adjust the parameter in time with the beat as well to give that live performance effects feel to your track. So we'll play through the high pass filter and the pitch on the grain delay, and let's add some simple delay as well. So I'm just going to play around with the different settings for a few minutes, and then hopefully by the end of it I'll have captured some interesting sounds which I can add later on to my track. So after about 5 minutes of playing around on the Launchpad, I think I found the sound that I want to add to the track. It's probably going to need some processing later on, but I think it's good enough for now. So let's go back to our live set and stop everything so we can have a look at the audio file. Okay, so here is the audio track that's captured everything that we've done on the Launchpad. If I just go into it here, I can see it's almost 360 bars long. Now usually I go through the whole thing to cut out any interesting parts. that I could add to my track. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to find the part at the end which I quite liked. So I think it was actually very close to the end. Let me actually switch the monitor on again and I'll solo the track. Zoom into it here. So where are we now?
What the
Yeah, I quite like that. So what I'm going to do now is crop it. Okay, and finally let's rename the clip. I'm going to call it vocal effects. Usually in this case I'd have 8 or 9 different clips which I would have taken out of the original track. Yeah, so hopefully this has given you an idea of how you can use a controller like the Launchpad to get the most out of an effects track in live. And it's also quite a fun way of coming up with random sounds and effects that you can add to your track later on. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it.